Hi trainers, how's it going? I hope your games are going wonderfully. Today we're going to be talking about how weakness policy actually works. I did a bunch of testing on Razor Claw already, which I have linked down below, and after this video we will talk about choice specs. But the topic today is all about weakness policy, one of Pokemon Unite's newer items. Weakness policy doesn't seem to be a very popular item and some players think it's not a good item. However, I did a lot of theory crafting, math and practical testing, and I would like to show you my results, and honestly, I think it's a lot better than I originally thought. I'm Teeds, I played MOBAs for over 9 years and my goal is to help you become the very best like no one ever was. Disclaimer, my opinion of this item is based on my own testing. I will always approach everything I research into from an unbiased perspective and form my opinion of it depending on my test results. This took me a long time to test. Weakness policy is so complicated and it's not as straightforward. Because of how complicated it was, I had to rely a lot on practical testing, which means a lot of bot matches, customs, and actual matches. So if you could, or you don't mind, subscribing and clicking the bell would be super appreciated. Okay, so what is weakness policy? It's a super unique item and one of the first of its kind in Pokemon Unite. Usually items in Pokemon Unite tend to lean on either damage or they lean on health or defense, but weakness policy leans on both health and damage. At level 30, it gives you 210 HP and 15 attack. For its passive, increases the Pokemon's attack for a short time by a minimum of 3% when the Pokemon receives damage. It stacks up to 4 times for a total of 12%. Now this percentage isn't as straightforward. It differs from Pokemon to Pokemon depending on their scaling. From my testing, this only works on physical auto attacks and moves and doesn't do anything for special attack based damage. This can constantly be refreshed as long as you are taking damage, but once you stop taking damage you lose all the stacks. You can keep track of the stacks at the bottom of your screen to the right here. So weakness policy is a very unique item and it's not a very versatile one. This item to me is a bruiser item, which means that it works better for those who want to deal damage, but who can also sustain damage and who are usually regularly taking damage in team fights. So this should work better for physical based defenders and all-rounders, or just those who have higher defense and health already. Maybe a physical based supporter as well, like Wigglytuff. In my opinion, this is not a good item for most speedsters and attackers, especially attackers, since attackers attack from a distance and should be trying to position in a way where they do not take damage. Speedsters are also in the same boat. They're too squishy or get taken down too easily to be able to sustain the unique passive of this move. So this item should work best on all-rounders and defenders. Before I get into all my testing, please do keep in mind that this item is so situational that the results will be different from game to game. It's kind of like attack weight or score shield in a way. It's an item that relies on you doing more to get the best results. With that, let's get into the testing. Disclaimer, I tested most of this in a controlled setting since it is pretty difficult to test. I did a bunch of number testing as well as practical testing. Weakness policy is it's so difficult and it is more situational and it was hard to get the stacks in a practice match. So I tested this on 2 different Pokemon, and that is Lucario and Charizard, to see who would deal more damage in a 1v1 situation against the same Pokemon with a different item. I ran a lot, and I mean a lot of custom matches with my friend Maxicu. Huge shout out to Maxicu for helping me test these items. What we did in every test was farm to level 10 and basically fight each other using the same amount of attacks every time. First, we tested this on Lucario. The issue at the moment in Pokemon Unite is that with the limited spots we have for items and how useful the meta items are, we have to think what meta item could we replace for weakness policy since it gives health and damage. So with Lucario on extreme speed, this is a build that I personally like to use: attack weight, score shield, and Razor Claw. Razor Claw procs on every extreme speed reset, which is why I like it. In this build, because I personally feel that attack weight and score should rely on each other, I felt that I need to keep these 2 items in the build. So in this testing, we tested Razor Claw versus weakness policy. Because weakness policy has health, this synergizes with score shield, stacking the health together. Here are my numbers with the combo I use as Lucario against the dummy at level 10. Weakness policy and Razor Claw are both at level 30. So the testing here is with weakness policy stacked at 4. The combo here is dash, boosted, dash, boosted. Weakness policy dealt 2,718 damage, Razor Claw dealt 2,848 damage. The next combo is dash, boosted, basic, basic, basic. Razor Claw dealt 2,433 damage, weakness policy dealt 2,487 damage. So the second combo doesn't have 2 dashes because generally if you're finding one target, you don't want to dash into them again right away because you'll lose your reset. So that's why the second combo is just with one dash and one boosted. You can see with the two combos here, when it is more ability based, Razor Claw deals more damage. This makes sense since Razor Claw is an item that procs off abilities, so it should be dealing more damage. Whereas the second combo still incorporates moves, but also more basic attacks, and that is where Weakness Policy dealt a bit more. This is because when you don't have moves to use, Razor Claw does not have anything to proc off, so the overall damage with moves and auto attacks being used, it favors Weakness Policy in this scenario. The good thing about Weakness Policy is that this passive damage works on everything that you use, that's your basic attacks and moves, whereas Razor Claw only works after using a move on your next basic attack. Another example is where Muscle Band only works on basic attacks, but doesn't do much for moves. Because numbers are really difficult for an item like Weakness Policy, I had to rely a lot on practical testing. So I also tested this in a lot of games with Weakness Policy and Razor Claw. Now every game is different, but with Weakness Policy, I felt that I was dealing more damage overall and performing better than with Razor Claw. The issue with Razor Claw and Extreme Speed on Lucario is that you do have to wait a second before using your next Extreme Speed to get the Razor Claw proc up. I was free to use Extreme Speed and Basic as quickly as I wanted afterwards. So this result surprised me a lot. So that was my results from Razor Claw versus Weakness Policy. It was very interesting. Of course, this will differ depending what Pokemon you're using, but I feel that Lucario makes use of Razor Claw because of the Extreme Speed resets, so it was just an interesting thing to look at. I also tested this against Muscle Band. So Charizard in Pokemon Unite is a Pokemon that uses Muscle Band and works well with it. This is due to Charizard's unique basic attacks in comparison to other all-rounders. It's pretty fast, and I'm someone who likes using Muscle Band on Pokemon who have fast attack speed or a basic attack focus. Since Muscle Band is super hard to use on the dummy due to the damage being based on the target's remaining health, I had to test this one more practically against my friend Maxicue. Muscle Band is just an item you can't really test numbers wise against a dummy, and that is due to the dummy having so much health. Max and I went against each other in customs at the same levels, using the same item sets, except I was using Muscle Band and Max was using Weakness Policy. We did this around 10 times for each item set, just to make sure we got consistent results. First, we did basic attacks only with Muscle Band against Weakness Policy. With basic attacks only on Charizard, Muscle Band won over Weakness Policy, which makes a lot of sense. Muscle Band is at its strongest when the health of the target is at full health. It's basically a lot of shred, especially on tanks. I then tested it again with moves and basic attacks incorporated, which is a more realistic scenario in a game as Charizard. Weakness Policy won over Muscle Band since Muscle Band doesn't affect moves that much, and Muscle Band loses effectiveness as health gets lower on the target. So in these two scenarios, both items are great, and in my opinion it really depends on your certain playstyle, Charizard specifically. I also tried this with a Unite move as well, and Weakness Policy versus Muscle Band, it mostly just finished at the same time. The test also included full builds like adding Scope Lens and Body Barrier to the mix, but it mostly yielded the same results. For me personally, I feel that I'd find more effectiveness with Weakness Policy in team fights over Muscle Band. However, I do like the shred potential of Muscle Band and Charizard's basic attacks, so on tanks especially this will deal a ton of damage. This is my conclusion in terms of damage. Weakness Policy seems to be able to keep up with damage against other items such as Muscle Band and Razor Claw, but just with like most items you do have to utilize it well. Please remember I only tested this on Lucario and Charizard. Not every item that is considered good will work on every Pokemon. But what about the other stat of Weakness Policy? Weakness Policy also gives you a bit of health, and at level 30, that is 210 HP. When we look at other items that give health as a flat stat that are considered good, we have Score Shield with 450 health and Buddy Barrier with 600 health. So in terms of health, Weakness Policy falls short as an item to rely on for survivability, but remember, it also gives us damage, which is why the health is not as high. To me personally, Weakness Policy is an item that is not super great on its own, but rather it synergizes well with other items. So if we pair up Weakness Policy with Body Barrier, you're stacking health together here, so that's a total of 810 extra health. You also have the extra damage with Weakness Policy, so let's go ahead and pair that with Razor Claw or Muscle Band. An item that I love running at the moment on Lucario is attack weight, score shield, and weakness policy. So here the damage of attack weight and weakness combine, and the health of score shield and weakness combine. This is what I mean when I say I see it as an item that works well as something that synergizes with others. It's like when players stack Wise Glasses and Choice Specs together because they both give special attack damage. I think that weakness policy is a very playstyle specific item. I feel like it really depends on what you want. Like for me, I like it better on my Lucario with extreme speed, whereas someone might like Razor Claw better because the proc damage. And if you're someone who uses extreme speed like constantly from target to target to target to target, getting those resets off, then that's where Razor Claw can be stronger. But because I don't want to rely on a scenario like that, I rather have the overall damage of weakness policy. I also like that it doesn't keep me back like Razor Claw does, because Razor Claw you still need to wait just a second for that proc to come back. So that's an example of playstyle, I guess. It really depends on how you want to play your Pokemon, and I do like the combination of health and damage with weakness policy. It's not supposed to give you a ton of damage, but it's also not supposed to give you a ton of health. I see weakness policy like an item that supports a damage and health build, but not an item that you use just for damage and not an item that you use just for health. Before I end this video, I want to quickly address some of the concerns of weakness policy. From my testing, I'm not saying weakness policy is the best item in the game or anything like that, but to me, it's an item that can be used on certain Pokemon in the defender and all-rounder role. I feel that Wigglytuff could also make use of this item as well, but I haven't ran any tests on Wigglytuff to say for sure. Some concerns on the stacking. So since this item is most effective at full stacks, I understand the concern of why use an item that is only at full stacks in certain conditions. I went through all of my games yesterday with weakness policy and in team fights. Keeping the 4 stacks in a team fight is very, very easy. It stacks very quickly, and that is because Pokemon Unite is such a fast-paced game that it works. Even in 1v1 scenarios, it was very easy to keep the 4 stacks up as well, because usually Pokemon are always attacking you. It is a very conditional item just like Score Shield and Attack Weight. These 2 items do not work best on everyone, and sometimes you might not even get any use out of it, which is a risk you run by. But hey, we still use it because it's still effective when it can be used in an optimal game. In my personal opinion, weakness policy has less risk than these 2 items because attack weight can sometimes be hard to stack, and Score Shield still has the con of doing nothing in a team fight except give you health. It's something you have to think about when you're trying to find the best build that suits your playstyle and making sure it's effective. With that, I do think that weakness policy could be better, maybe a little bit more health, and I think that the stack should disappear stack by stack instead of instantly going once you're no longer being hit at 4 stacks. The other thing is that in some situations, maybe you can't get the full stacks because they're not damaging you, but at the same time, they're not damaging you, you know what I mean? It's kind of funny. Other than that, I do not think weakness policy is a bad item and it can work on certain builds. And with all these item testings, I'm finding more builds that seem to do more than the builds that we know of at the moment. So I do want to start slowly doing item build tests for every Pokemon, because at the moment, a lot of our most optimal builds of Pokemon are actually tested, and I would like to test different builds to actually find the most optimal one. So yeah, this was a very long video. I actually had a harder time testing weakness policy over Razor Claw, and I thought Razor Claw was going to be the hard one, but so weakness policy, 0 out of 10, would not test again. But I'm happy that I did because I'm very surprised by the result. Anyways, I just wanted to share this. I don't know if this will change your mind on weakness policy or if this gives you any more insight about it, but I hope this has helped in some way. I'll be working on choice specs next. I hope you found this helpful or insightful, trainers. What do you think? Subscribe and click the bell for more Pokemon Unite guides using gameplays. Like the video if you found this interesting. Thank you so much for watching, trainers. Bye!